Well, this is Baruch Fleischman, and we're reading from this tremendous book by Dr. Haim Beinhart. I'm sure he's gone by now. This is a tremendous thing, and he has other things he's written, particularly about Spain. It's interesting because Dr. Beinhart was born in a Hasidic family from Russia. And obviously, he made his way into Israel. He became a professor at Hebrew University. And particularly, he became interested in the diaspora of the Spanish expulsion. So he has a lot of detail on what happened. How many people, so many people came to Portugal with the idea that they would be safe. And now he's going to explain the details of what really happened. Jewish exodus from Spain and Portugal in these years, 1492 to 1497. It's approximately, is it 600 years ago? No, 550 years ago. So he says, the expulsion from Spain altered the map of Jews in Europe, creating a diaspora within a diaspora. Spanish Jewish communities formed with existing Jewish communities. This situation poses two questions. How many Jews left Spain, and what were their destinations? He says it's difficult to calculate the number expelled, but an estimate may be hazarded on the basis of the number of Jewish residents in various places. The majority of Spanish Jews in the 5th century resided in Castilla. And conservative estimate of this population is 30,000 families, and that's between 120 to 150,000 people. In Aragon, the estimate is about 50,000 people. This gives us a total of about 200,000 Jews who were expelled. In the first part of this series, he explained that the Jews didn't know it was coming. An approximate estimate given in both Jewish and non-Jewish sources is 200,000. According to Rabbi Beryl Wein, this is a large population of Jews living within Catholic Spain. According to Rabbi Wein, 200,000 converted, approximately half. So you have 400,000 Jews living in a population, not sure how many people really were in all of Spain. Most of those banished went to Portugal, where they were offered a temporary 8th-month haven for the per capita price of 8 cruzados. Now, cruzados is the word cross. So today, and this is a 2-part share, is Christmas Day 2024. So now we have an idea of the cross. We have an idea of how Christianity itself was designed to destroy the Jews. 25 ships led by Pedro Cabron left Cadiz, he pronounced it Cadiz, for Oran. But the Jewish passengers, fearing to disembark, despite the reassurance of a Genoese pirate named Fragoso, returned to Arcilo in North Africa. Storms forced the ships to anchor at Cartagena and Malaga, where many of the Jews converted while others died of an epidemic. Those who disembarked at Arcilo remained there until 1493. They were joined by a group of Jews who had settled in Portugal, and were now on their way to the east, except for 700 heads of families who went to Morocco, paying a considerable sum of money for this privilege. So you see that Jews had to leave their money behind, but I guess it was smuggled out as well. Other refugees went to North Africa, Italy, and further eastward. Some went to the Papal State of France. There was a schism at that time. Here we go. Their journeys were beset with hardship, suffering, and affliction, robbery, extortion, and even murder. Many lost their lives on the way. A cruel fate awaited those who fled to Portugal. This is the most interesting story. John II, in the year 1481 to 1495, God bless him, he died. He accepted 600 wealthy families and skilled craftsmen, granting them permanent residence. Others who were given only temporary residence were enslaved if they failed to leave on time. Enslaved. So there were 600 wealthy families, gave them a place to stay, but then he died in 1495. Then came his successor, John II's successor, Manuel I, 1495 to 1521, was a tragic one for the Jews of Portugal. Isabella, and I think maybe they pronounce it Isabella, daughter of Fernando and Isabella, this is the other Isabella, this is Isabella II, agreed to marry on the condition that he rid Portugal of the Jews. Let's read this again. So when this King John II's successor, Manuel I, came in, this is Manuel, 1495, 1521, that's 26 years, was a tragic one for the Jews of Portugal. The Isabella, the daughter of Fernando and Isabella, agreed to marry him. So in other words, they're going to combine Spain and Portugal together. But he had to do this, that he rid Portugal of the Jews. Therefore, thus, on 5 December 1496, the Edict of Expulsion was promulgated. They printed it, or they established it. The text being an abridged copy of the Spanish Edict. In February 1496, said it wrong, February 1497, Jewish children up to the age of 14 whose parents intended emigrating were seized and forcibly baptized. Can you imagine this situation here? Now what they were talking about, maybe it's going to explain a little bit more, is that they were all leaving and they took the kids. So soon the age limit was extended to 20 and they forcibly baptized all the Jews. Now, what are you thinking here? How were the Jews living at this time? They were living in tremendous, tremendous poverty and tents. Can you imagine what's going on in Gaza right now? Going on for the Jews. Jews are living miserably on the sides of mountains and hills in Portugal, trying to sustain themselves, many sick and dying. And Jews began to flee the country in every possible way. Many children were detained and transferred to the Portuguese colony of the island of São Tomé in the Gulf of Guinea off the African coast, where they were cruelly ill-treated, and most of them died in the jungle. Now, there's a book about this. It's a very romantic book. It's called The Exiles of Crocodile Island. I don't know if it's a takeoff on this. But there the kids got themselves together, and the priests who were watching them were mostly drunk and depressed, extremely depressed. And the Jews really got themselves organized. So, what a tremendous, tremendous pain. On 19 March 1497, the expulsion edict was replaced by forced conversion. All the Jews, they went into camps where the Jews were living and sprinkled holy water on them, and bingo, they were all Catholics. A change in policy which possibly stemmed from the desire to retain the Jewish population within a sparsely populated nation of about 1 million people that had recently undertaken large settlement commitments in West Africa. The act of conversion was accomplished through deception. How did they do this? By assembling at Lisbon, the only officially sanctioned port of embarkation, all those who wished to leave. They said that they had boats for them and they're going to get them out of Portugal. That's it. You're going to be expelled. Sounds like the Nazis. Those assembled were then ceremonially baptized and declared citizens of the realm. Only a few among them, and he gives a name, Abraham ben Samuel Zacuto, were able to resist and later escaped. On 30 May 1497, let me see if I got this lined up badly here, just 1 second. On 30 May 1497, the king issued orders that those who converted should be safe from persecution and from the Inquisition for a 20-year period. Dr. Beinhart writes, from this it would appear that Manuel I was already contemplating the institution of a natural inquisition, model on that of Spain. So you see that they gave a time limit on those converted to be safe from persecution, and they wouldn't be exposed to the Inquisition, which indicates that after the 20 years, they would be exposed to an Inquisition is coming. Now, if you understand what an Inquisition was, if you didn't, an Inquisition was the idea that anyone who's converted had now been moved up into a high realm, but these Jews, for some reason, they were insidious, they kept Judaizing. They kept going back to their praying in minyanim. They went back to observing the Jewish holidays in secret. The whole idea of the Inquisition was inquire of them who had lapsed. It's called a lapsed heretic. The fate of the lapsed heretic after torture, as according to Rabbi Beryl Wein, they believed that the torture would get that sickness out of them, that Jewish sickness, was to be burnt at the stake. Many new communities were established by the Spanish exiles in the Mediterranean basin. The Ottoman Empire proved particularly congenial to Jews and conversos, who developed a comprehensive spiritual network in their communities. Can you imagine when we, in this Tikkun Elevator Kollel, we study Kabbalah here, basically. The Kabbalists, the great Kabbalists, came from Spain. They settled in Eretz Yisrael and Turkey and various different places in the east under the Ottomans. And there's I like to think about this. There's a Gemara in Masechtas Menachos, which talks about the fact that the Jews can be equated to an olive. The olive by itself, when you squeeze it, you really start to squeeze it and crush it, it produces the very best oil. And so it is with the Jewish people that this tremendous tragedy, this tremendous pain that took place, was squeezed down. And ultimately produced the Ruach HaKodesh, who we learn right here, the Holy Ari. The Holy Land also attracted the Spanish exiles, and its conquest by the Turks in the year 1517 served as a fulcrum for the expansion and development of the Jewish communities in the country. Now, I didn't get a chance to read this ahead, so I'm just going to read this right now, this little blurb he has at the bottom. And it says, I, Judah, son of my Lord, the wise and pious Rabbi Yaakov, may he rest in peace, while residing in Spain, savored a smidget of honey. Mine eyes saw the light, and my mind was given to seek wisdom and inquire thereof. Now, I'm not sure what he means by honey, but I think he means the Benemius of the Torah. I went from strength to strength, gathering all that was found in the aforementioned book, gleaning a morsel here and a morsel there until I possessed most of what it contained. In true faith, I believed it was the knowledge that enabled me to withstand the terrible hardship that befell upon me and my expulsion from Spain, that whosoever heareth of it, both his ears shall tingle, to relate all the hardships from all I know, not the numbers thereof, but of some I will tell, and I shall speak the praises of the Lord. We traveled, I and my family, with 250 other souls in one vessel in midwinter 1493. They were expelled from Spain in the summer, which turned out to be the Tisha B'Av of the year 1492, which is the same day that Columbus set sail. He says 1493, from Lisbon, the great city of the king of Portugal, and at the command of the king. So they all left Portugal in 1493. The Lord struck us with pestilence. To fulfill his word, I will smite them with pestilence and destroy them. And this was the reason why no place would receive us. Depart ye, unclean. Depart ye, unclean, men cried unto them. And we left wandering ceaselessly 4 months on the sea, with meager bread and scant water. These were the times of trials. What was our sin? Does the sin go back to the selling of Joseph by his brothers? Does it go with the fact that the Jews are not united, or that we are split into so many different parts, or very fractious? Unity is our salvation, because God is one. This is Baruch Fleischman, and you're listening to the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, Rabbi Haim Beinhart. Well, this is Baruch. I'm back again. This is actually a third part of a two-part series, because I see that I did not bring this last part in, and it is part of this little series. This is the routes taken by Jews expelled from Spain. I'll try to bring this down a little bit more that we get an idea of Spain. You can see that travel, one of the things they say about Spain is that it's cut up by rivers and mountains into many different sections. As a result, there are lots of different ethnic groups within Spain itself, or different interests within Spain itself. Now, you're not talking about there's a train you can pick up over here at Toledo and then take it over here. No, you're talking about people going very slowly with wagons, donkeys, like that. To own a horse in Spain at that time made you a caballero. A caballo is the Spanish word for a horse, and a caballero is like a knight, like a person who's of a privileged social caste. But nobody had horses, but basically what you're doing is you're going by donkey and wagon. Maybe you have something else to pull, and trying to make your way over through mountainous, difficult territory to get out. But eventually you could find your way to a port. And then what's going to happen to you after that? It's really... Whoa. Okay, how do I do this? Hello? I got you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I was doing something else. I forgot. I lose track of the time. Okay, let me get back to where we were. And so let me get back to where I was. I forgot that I had another shear coming in. The back end of the shear was a short shear. Let me see if what I can do about getting some better focus here. Now, we were talking about all the different places that Jews had to leave from Spain. Just imagine what was going on. We just have this little blurb that's coming over here now to finish out the shear. I thought this would be a third shear. I got mixed up. So, because I didn't stop the second one, so now we're just going on, and it's good. These are all the different places that Jews left from. All of them. So many. In the last year, or in the earlier part of this year, we were talking about the quantities of people that left from the different ports. Apparently everybody didn't leave at one time. And so this is the end, the routes taken by the Jews expelled from Spain. That's what we have here. And now we're going to have a little story on map form. So getting oriented on the map here, you have Spain, and here's Italy. This is Europe. And as you go further east, you get to the Ottoman Empire, because by this time the Turks had really conquered a tremendous amount of the Asian basin. So this is this little story. It's called The Wanderings of Rabbi Yehuda Hayat. A little bit closer. We can get closer, even a little bit closer. Still working. In the winter of 1493, and we mentioned this earlier in this year, Rabbi Yehuda Hayat and family, along with 250 Portuguese refugees, were at sea for 4 months. Now, it doesn't take 4 months to get to another place outside of Spain. They were at sea for 4 months. Number 2, he says, priests board the ship, preach conversion. About 100 of the 450 Jews apostatized after 5 days. About 50, including Yehuda Hayat's wife, resist and die of starvation. Now, you want to ask why they would be on the sea for 4 days. For 4 months. And the answer is extortion. This is the way of the Mediterranean. This is the way of the Arabs. See, the Arabs take hostages, and who knows what they do with them, and it causes tremendous anguish in their enemies. So then he goes on. It is number 3. Rabbi Yehuda Hayat is libeled by a Spanish Muslim exile. Now understand that at the same time that the Jews are kicked out of Spain, the Muslims are kicked out too, given the same choices. Convert, and so therefore you have a large percentage of the population of Spain, which is, these people are Caucasians, are come from Arab roots. So the Spanish Muslim exile imprisoned for 40 days. He was imprisoned then for 40 days. His wife is dead. And then he's ransomed by the town's Jews. This is what we do. The last one, and you see his route here. He left Portugal. This is all his route, going through all of these different places. And eventually he's going to wind up in Napoli. Excuse me, he says 1496, not Napoli. He has to go around. There is a place in Spain, in Italy rather, which is called Mantua here. In the old days it was called Mantura, which must have some mountain designation, where many copies of the Zohar were printed and other Kabbalistic works. But that's coming. At any rate, this is the end. These are the Jews. This is what their journey was like and how beaten they were. One of the things that Dr. Beinhart mentions in some other works that I've read is that as the Jews are really beaten down here, from the highest place that we were living in Spain, good, just like Jews live here really well. But you see the anti-Semitism building up. And it's on the right and it's on the left. The left is the worst right now. Maybe because we were living so high, we had to go to such a tremendous fall. At any rate, this is Baruch Fleischman, and this is the end of turns out to be the second shiur on the expulsion of Jews from Spain.